that's all right.
Natasha. 1 second, let the board finish and then we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I guess I am interested in.
That's all right.
What the board says, but I agree with John completely. And like it's such a small dollar amount to go to referendum. I just think it's such a small, yeah. I think the increase is long overdue. And it's not just about us, it's about the future. It's about setting up the expectation that we're here to do a job, a professional job. I feel strongly this is not a hobby. It would be very easy for someone to just come here and just show up for meetings. I mean, to really do this job well, there's a lot that we do in the background, and this additional $200 would nowhere near compensate us for that. It is, a big time commitment. Yes, I guess my point is it still doesn't compensate us for all the sacrifices that we do with our time and our talents that we contribute to the town. But I do think that the increase is way long overdue. And I almost think that perhaps we should build in some automatic increase, like to tie it to an index somehow, so that, because it so quickly goes out of date. We don't know what's going on with inflation, these next few years. But I think, even if we do approve this 20% increase, that's going to quickly, if we do a 5% inflation for the foreseeable future, that's going to quickly get out of date. So I personally think it doesn't need to go to referendum. I think we can do it at the commission level. The public doesn't like it, they can vote us out.
But that's not really what we're voting on. We are voting on putting language in the charter that says we can give ourselves a raise by ordinance. You're not putting
Right.
the raise in here.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But the ordinance is a little bit easier, right? Is that lower
Absolutely. An
bar?
ordinance is much
And so-
easier. But you have to send to referendum the fact that the commission can increase their salary by ordinance, because that's a change to the charter, and any change to the charter has to go to referendum. So, but in the ordinance, you can say, okay, we're increasing it from X to Y, and after you get Y, we're building in a 2% increase every year.
So it's like a one-time, get the voter approval for this.
Right.
And then moving forward, it's an easier bar. And so I guess I am in
Yes.
favor of that.
This gives us the right to do it.
Right.
So if this passes, then we can argue or debate how much, whatever, do we tie it to the CPI or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we have one big obstacle, and then
Correct.
going forward, it would be, perhaps a little, and I like
Yes.
that idea.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
it makes sense.
back
Yes,
to
Mr.
Peg.
Mayor, I wondered if I could add a question in, if we could get any kind of data on county commissions or statewide, if we could get more information. And I'm not sure when the last salary raise was for our town. Do we know? Was it 20 years
Somebody
ago?
said it was
17
20 years ago.
Yeah, that was
20?
brought up. It was like
So what's the inflation rate since then? It's like 24%.
You know what it
probably
was?
2% a year.
Oh, I missed it.
All right, so we'll dig it
I
out.
remember the
Okay.
discussion, but I don't have.
It was a
in front
long
of
time
me.
ago.
Okay, so if we could have a relook at that and maybe then a
Sure.
countywide.
When
I
we
just
get
think it
back
would help.
together, we'll table this if you want.
Great,
When we get
let's-
back together, we'll get it. But
It's-
this basically, but
Yes.
we're jumping ahead. Let's go back to
I
what
understand, yeah.
our associate just said. All we're determining here is, do we want to put the language in that gives us the right to make those decisions? That's all. So I think we all agree we want to put the language in. Okay. He's first. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Dr.
Time.
Yeah, actually, this is an issue the board discussed Atlanta. And some of us were concerned with the big increase given by the commission. And I raised a concern that the salary should be adjusted based on the inflation index. And I suggest that we can use a GSA, General Service Administration Inflation Index annually. And the raise will be based on that. At least we have a neutral index to be based for salary increase. Therefore, in this case, when you talk about the low salary, the board, the commission receive, and I agree, very low. And if you want to have that increase accordingly, you know, the charter suggested that require that you have to go through referendum to avoid a case of commission raise and give them a big raise. So in general, I would suggest that in the charter, we should put annual increase based on the price index. And then if you want to raise a big, have a somewhat fair salary, you can go to the referendum for the voter to approve.
You're suggesting putting it in the charter?
Yeah,
To what benefit?
the increase, annual increase.
The annual increase into the charter.
Yeah.
Interesting idea. Well, let's kick that around when we go forward. Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Let me just say, I don't think anyone on the Charter Review Board felt that increases in the commission salary should go for a referendum every time.
Right.
I mean, nobody thought that
makes
because, as we're talking about, the cost of the referendum would greatly outweigh the cost of the increases in salaries under any sort of normal circumstances. So no one suggested that. So most of the debate ended up with the consensus being, or at least the majority being, that we just go ahead and make this a function that by ordinance, you know, in the charter, by ordinance, the commission could increase their salaries. And that's really what the Charter Review Board came up with. Some of the things that Evelyn were talking about are the things that I added in my minority report, which I want to make clear were not adopted by the Charter Review Board as a whole. And for me, and again, for me, it's not worth making a big deal out of this because the numbers are so small. For me, as a matter of principle, I just don't like the idea of anybody voting to increase their own salary with taxpayer money. I mean, it just philosophically, I don't like that idea, even though that's how most governments work. And if you look up the other communities in our area, they almost all do that. The idea that I put forward, which is you have to face the voters once before your raise goes into effect. It's been some months and I forget the towns, but there are like 2 towns in our area, in the Palm Beach County area, that do that, as I suggested in my minority opinion. The rest of the places, the commission votes to increase their salaries, and that's what happens, and that's it. And if people don't like it, presumably they can vote them out of office. So I just wanted to, I didn't want you to think or get the impression that somehow that the majority of the Charter Review Board was against keeping it simple. The vast majority wanted to keep it simple, give the commission under the charter the power by ordinance to raise their salaries. And then there were suggestions made, as Kai pointed out, you know, different ways to do that, including in this one instance, putting mandatory things in the charter itself. Most of us thought it would be easier to do the specifics by ordinance.
Yeah, we kind of like it, kids, you know,
Yeah.
the
Well,
simpler the
keep it
better,
simple.
easily understood by the
And
electorate.
again, as we pointed out very early in the meetings, if you listen to them, one of the goals of the Rotary Board that
772.
Barry and the group said early on was that we wanted to keep it simple, keep it relevant, and make no gratuitous changes. I mean, there are a lot of little things that could be changed, but it all has to go to referendum, and
Not a big
we
win.
felt
in
it's
that.
best to keep it simple and straightforward as best we could.
And I might point out that anytime we would do an ordinance or a resolution, it's in an agenda and it's open for public discussion. So if people really had an issue with it, there's a forum for them to come forward and let us know that they don't agree.
And it's read twice, right? How many times do we
Yes.
read it?
Yeah.
Right. It
Yeah.
comes,
And actually, very more often than not, first you discuss it, then you come up with language, then you read it once, then you look at it and read it twice, and sometimes there are changes in between. So this is a process. It's not, gee, today we decide that we're going to double our salary and tomorrow we get it.
right.
It's completely open to the public.
I will say, though, just one more thing, and again, not a big point, but I disagree with the discussion that it's kind of out of whack to have not everybody drawing the exact same salary at the same time. I mean, businesses do that continuously, and I suspect in our own town government, we're doing that now. I'm sure that all the policemen aren't getting exactly the same salary.
That's not a fair comparison at all.
No.
Well,
No, sorry,
all right,
doesn't
I
work.
Mr. Mayor,
disagree, but I mean,
Okay.
I mean, in business and everything else. I think
You're
that's
comparing apples
not
and pears on that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Ron, you had something you wanted to add, Ron?
yes, I was against this language. This, in my mind, all these things fall under shall and should. These are things that I think, my mind, we have to think in terms of, we elect the commission, hire managers. If you don't like them, recall them, terminate them, vote them out, and so on. So to put these kinds of conditions on all these different sections of the charter, that, it's like, we're all putting everything in as like, well, we don't trust the people that work for us or that we voted for. And to me, that this whole line of thinking, like this particular issue and a number of other ones that you've already discussed and all fall under that same category. And I just think you're creating burdensome things, having people on different salaries like you're talking about. It's like, look, do things that make sense. And if you have a problem with it, then get rid of the people. And there's plenty of provisions in the town and the county and the state to take care of that. And that's I'm against putting more straps on people that work for the town. Thank you.
I agree with Ron.
Since when did you get so smart, Ron?
Yeah. Well, I went to, excuse me.
That's it.
But at some point, the voters have to take some responsibility for who they're voting for.
Yeah, okay, I think we
And-
killed this.
You can't do everything based on the fact
I know.
that you may not trust somebody in the future
Okay,
because you can't function that way.
let's, I think we beat this one up pretty good. Let's move on. Like you spent a lot of time on it, here we are spending a lot of time. Let's move on.
So just to clarify, yeah, are we
Yeah.
moving, I guess we're moving forward with the language that's being proposed.
Accept it, but we're gonna come back with some additional information.
Well, but the language we're going to leave in, the additional information is for down the road on what we're going to do and how we're
Right,
going
the
to apply it.
additional information would be
But
for
we're
the
in agreement
ordinance,
with
not for the
the,
charter.
Yeah, we're in agreement with,
Right,
with the committee.
this is how it should read in the charter. And then you take care of everything else by.
We gotta come up with an ordinance.
Okay, we're done. Move on to the next. Good. The next is consideration to change the language where 3 or more commissioners would be required to suspend the town manager, not just the mayor. Right now, the mayor can suspend the town manager on his or her own. This is suggesting that three commissioners would be able to suspend the town manager. And then obviously so just cause at a public or a special meeting. But right now, I'll just repeat, the mayor can suspend the town manager and then bring it to the commission to show just cause. The board decided not to accept that suggestion and not to make any change in it. This is a big subject. Would somebody from the board come up and explain why you decided not to?
Okay, I'll take a shot at that. You have to read this within the context of the rest of the ordinance that this pertains to. It is a piece of a longer part of the ordinance.
Okay, take your time and fill us in.
What we basically cut through to was the fact that this was merely a motion to suspend, period. Not to get rid of a town manager, but to simply feel that we need to discuss this. We need to bring this forward. The other part of the provision in the ordinance is that it's actually only by a vote of the commission, at least 3, in order to make it effective. So it's almost a duplication. If you're going to have 3 to suspend, it's almost automatic. I mean, you know, you're kind of implying there's just cause right off the bat.
Right, it's a done deal then.
Exactly. So it didn't seem to be the kind of tiered approach that's in the ordinances, the full reading of the ordinance currently. And again, we talked about this one at length, but felt like it was a shift in power that wasn't necessary. There seemed to be enough checks and balances there for it to work the way it was currently set up.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion here on the board? Go right ahead.
Yeah.
So my first question, Barry, is suspend. There's a difference between suspend and discharge or termination.
Mhm.
Yes,
And then what I think I'm hearing is that the mayor has the right to suspend the town manager, at which time it would come to the commission for discussion and a vote on discharge
correct,
or termination.
correct.
But that the mayor can't fire the town manager, but he can suspend him, which means you don't come to work until we resolve, do we want you or not, or you being any town manager.
Sure.
And that the mayor, I think, as our team leader, should have the responsibility to decide to suspend the town manager when he sees that there's a problem, a huge problem. That on that magnitude, that would take it that far. In which case, I'm sure then at the next commission meeting, we would discuss what happened, why, and what are you recommending? Are you recommending penalty, discharge? I mean, there are other options here.
Sure.
And so that gives flexibility to decide as a group, which also helps the mayor not have a full burden of, firing, but that to assess the options and to make sure we're doing a responsible thing.
Correct.
That's my.
I just wanted to restate it, make
That's my
sure
understanding.
that we're all on the same wavelength here.
You 100%, well stated.
Yeah, in essence, the mayor has the right for a temporary suspension. And I think that's appropriate. I think at some point, you have to have a leader and you have to have one person who's in charge, in essence, that the mayor has a lot more responsibilities than a commissioner does.
That's why I get $200 a month more.
Absolutely. But you're only worth 150. But, you have to have somebody who can take charge. And you don't even have to wait for the next scheduled commission meeting. You could call a special meeting
That is correct.
to discuss it so that it doesn't hang on for a long period of time. I have no problem with having the mayor be able to suspend based and then have it either upheld or disagreed with by the rest of the commission, by a full commission.
Peg,
Thank you. I tentatively agree with where we're going on that, but I'd like to raise 2 points. First of all, I have a question of law whereby if the mayor dies in office, then does the vice mayor immediately assume that position like that day? How does that operate? Because this happened in my first year and I'm wondering if the mayor is deceased, how does that work?
Mr. Mayor, please don't die on us in the
Yes,
meantime.
not that you will, but we're looking at the next 10 years here and we're looking
Yeah.
at,
I know
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
happened
right.
was the
Yeah, but-
commission assigned somebody,
Yeah,
but
and my
I don't know if
second-
that was legal or not.
No, I
That's
think
right.
that is the way it
That's why
has
I'm
to be
asking.
done.
And if
I-
while Glenn's up, if I could ask my second point, which would be, which has happened in the state in other locations. What happens if the mayor and the town manager are in some kind of cahoots collusion? And therefore other commissioners need to step forward. I'm just asking on a general basis.
So section 226, duty of vice mayor in the event of death, absence, disability, or disqualification of mayor, the vice mayor shall discharge the duties of the mayor. Following section talks about the permanent vacancy. I'm thinking that first one is until you figure out what you're going to do, the vice mayor does take that role, but that's not a permanent assignment. Because then it says in the event of those things, or the vice mayor, the members of the town commission by resolution shall appoint one of its members to act as mayor until such a time of vacancy of the office of mayor and or vice mayor have been properly filled.
There you go. Thanks, Glenn.
Oh, no. Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see him standing there. I'm sorry.
All right, time out. Yep. Question 2, though, was if the mayor and the manager are in cahoots doing illegal things, questionable
Ever,
things,
right.
what does the commission do?
Again, back to the same question we talked about before, whether it's the mayor and the manager, the commissioner and the manager, the commissioner and the commissioner. If there's something that's going on that's wrong, it gets reported to whoever the appropriate authority is. If it's unlawful, it could be the state attorney's office, it could be the inspector general, it could be the commission on ethics, it could be the governor. So lots of avenues depending on what specific facts are being alleged.
Okay, that's your answer.
But typically,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Because we have to look at these. Mr. Labadie had a typical comment.
I was just gonna say typically, and I always say this kind of in jest, and I said it a lot to the charter review board. In that situation, town manager gets fired. So that leads into some of the other things we talk about. At the end, the easiest thing to do is to get rid of the town manager. Really, in those type of unfortunate situations, it's harder to remove an elected official, significantly harder than to somebody that works under contract for all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that could be brought up at a commission meeting and voted on.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That the mayor, it's at the mayor's direction. I mean, there's several things that are at your direction and it's orderly and very organized. So I'm in favor with not making.
leave it as be.
Yes.
Okay, I agree. On to the next. All right, this is going to take some discussion, I believe. This is about the senior management reporting to the town manager. One is from an operational standpoint, but the other is in terms of a hiring and firing responsibility. Currently, the police chief and the town clerk report to the town manager, but cannot be terminated, cannot be released, cannot be fired by the town manager. That goes to the commission. So if, God forbid, there was a problem and Marshall decided that it has reached the end of the rope and from a disciplinary standpoint, et cetera, needed to part company, he would bring that situation to the commission with a recommendation to part company with one of those two people. And it would be the decision of the commission to move forward on that. This recommendation of the board is to change that so that the town manager has the ultimate responsibility for termination. And they've added to that the fire chief. So basically setting this up more like a corporate environment than it is currently set up. So we need to discuss that. You're shaking your head, so why don't we start with you?
I am. We are chartered to have a strong town manager, we commission form of government. And using that as a guideline, I think that it behooves us to have the town manager have the right and the authority over the clerk and the police chief and the fire chief. And because the town manager ultimately reports to the commission, we always have the right to fire him and change what he did. So it's not that there's any one step that is dispositive until the commission truly acts on it. And you have to let the manager manage the town, which means the commission has a responsibility for making sure they hire the best manager they can. You know, you can't, once again, you can't insulate yourself from every type of wrongdoing. Just in case. There are checks and balances in place that if something happens, you can go in and attack it when it happens, not wondering if it's going to happen. So I think this language is fine. I think it's, I like the way they set it up, and I think that that's how we should do it.
John?
Hell just froze over. That is, for the first time since I've been a commissioner, I disagree with Commissioner David. Okay, and this goes back, I guess, to my, again, business world, where we have 3 key executives with an operational responsibility that is critical for the town. 2 of them have specific skills that are required for that job, that being the fire chief and the police chief. I think that those 2 would look to a town manager for operational support as well as for guidance. So in the corporate world, my mind is that they would be a dotted line to the town manager for operating efficiencies, operating issues, and all of that. They would, the fire chief and the police chief, however, should know that they work for the commission. And I would look for them to be solid line, so to speak, to the commission. But in any situation where either the fire chief or the police chief is not performing in the view of the town manager, then the town manager's responsibility is to come to the commission and explain the concern, and then for the commission then to take on the decision as to next actions. So because of the unique skill sets, organizational differences and so forth, I really think you have to separate fire and police under their leadership that would work with the town manager, not just, and you know I'm not talking about you in particular, but work with any town manager operationally. But at the same time, the fire chief and the police chief, they have to know that if you're not happy with their performance, you have a duty to come to the commission and say, we got a problem. But I think it's endemic upon the commission to make that decision on all three. On the suspension or discharge or salary increase for any of the three of you. So, but I think it is aligning responsibilities that are unique while not disconnecting the role of a town manager in any way, because that would continue with the interface to the commission.
Thank you, John. Peggy?
Thanks, Mayor. This is complicated, and I'm going to throw a couple ideas out. First of all, the commission is charged with the health, safety, security of the people of the town. That's 5. We were elected to do that. And I feel that the fire chief to be, and hopefully, and the police chief and the clerk work for the people. And if we completely remove that layer in all respects, then they're just working for the town manager. And I believe it might throw a balance of power out of joint. I mean, we keep saying, well, let's run this town like a business, and we should do that, but we cannot forget we are a government, and government is set up with a balance of powers at the federal, state, county, and local levels. And so now in my 3.5 years up here, I never felt like the chief works for me. He reports to me daily, monthly. He doesn't, or the clerk. I feel like they really work day to day for Mr. Laverty and then Mr. Laverty for the people. But really, I think there needs to be a level remaining where these positions report to the commission through Mr. Laverty, maybe not day to day, month to month, but possibly on a hire and fire basis or on a reporting basis. I mean, I haven't really done a major report on the effectiveness of anyone in those positions, the chief or the clerk. I haven't done that. I haven't felt like a need for it, but I think we still need a balance of power. I think we need to have the town manager overseeing the positions, but I think the positions also need to report to the people and to the commission. And that's how the charter was set up for a reason. And I'd like to know once again, if the charters of other communities have the reporting positions to the town manager solely or to their commissions and councils. I would like to have that data if we could from Unicode. I think it's important that we emulate successful communities in the area and how their positions effectively work in their towns. We really need to know that data. Thank you.
Natasha?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I need more information. Like who brought this to the
I
charter
don't
board?
know.
So I brought it here on the idea that we will be having a fire chief. How do you want to handle that? Do you want to, if you take the last part of your thoughts on it, if you do nothing, it stays as it is and the fire chief would directly report to the town manager. If you did nothing on this topic, it would stay as it always has. It's just now the fire chief would be similar to the public works director, the building official, the library director. Those folks report directly to me. So if you do change it though, but because you had this condition, I thought you needed to discuss this to say, do you wish to put another public safety chief in there, meaning a fire chief? Do you want them to be in a similar situation? I'm going to use Dr. Greenwald's thing. Any town manager in his right mind is going to have you involved in all of this. But with the fire chief, you know, you'll be involved, but technically if you don't do anything, I guess I could just go hire a fire chief. That would be insane, but I guess I could do that. But again, I brought it forward so you could think about, do you want to handle it similar as the police chief and the clerk? That's basically what it is, because you're creating this now. How do you want to handle that position? So
could someone from the board come up and kind of explain the rationale for, provide a little bit more information for making the change?
Yeah, I'd like to say something as well.
Okay,
let Ron go
Mr. Riami, if you want to go ahead.
Okay. So I'm surprised, John, that you disagree with us having a business background. If you've ever had dotted line responsibilities, people coming, and you're trying to be the manager, the boss, and you have people who have dotted line into you and report to other people and so on and so forth. It's very difficult. The chain of command should be clear. By not having it such, it becomes very difficult for a town manager to work with quote subordinates when they don't report to them. You can have some influence over them, but anytime that you don't have direct responsibility, and they can go to the commissioners, which periodically are changing and so forth, it becomes very difficult for that person to manage it. And once again, as some of you have said, you want clear responsibility. You want to make sure that the town is managed correctly and that the voters have the rights. Well, you have the right to hire and fire the town manager. I mean, any town manager who is going to, tomorrow fire the fire chief, the police chief, the clerk, and whoever else, and didn't come to the commission to kind of just to let you know, I'm going to fire these 3 people. They'd be crazy, and also, but they have to have that authority, and the people that work for them have to know that they have that authority. So it's imperative that, the town commission has the right to hire and fire this one person. And the people that report to that person should report to them totally, not on some dotted line situation. That is abhorrent when you're trying to be a manager. So that's the biggest reason that we did it. I'm strongly in favor of having this type of situation, and it's ludicrous to have it any other way. That's why we did it.
Mr. Rami, could I just give you a retort? In the business world, I'm talking about small and mid-sized businesses. You would have a vice president of marketing, vice president of sales, vice president of engineering, vice president of finance, and they report to a CEO. In larger corporations, you could say they report to a COO, and then the COO reports to the CEO and works with the board. I think in our case, and no matter what, you would have these VPs work together as a team. There is no doubt in my mind that with the town manager involved in the hiring of the fire chief, along with the current relationship between the town manager and our our police chief, that they are going to work together as a team. I say dotted line because operationally, they have to be tied together. But from a strategic standpoint and from a focus on skills that are quite different, when there are issues at a higher level, they need to be able to come to the commission. That's, I guess, from my experience, where if they don't operate as a team, then this commission has a bigger problem.
Well, that's true. I mean, you want your people to work as a team. In my experience, every position, when I had engineers work for me, I didn't know what the hell they were doing half the time, but the head of engineering worked for me. The head of software worked for me. I didn't know what the hell they were doing half the time. So, but the thing is I had to have the authority to make the decision. I couldn't have those people reporting in dotted lines or only dotted line to me and have them report to somebody in another area. If you have that situation, you cannot manage the whole process. And you want your town manager to manage the whole process of the community. You have every right to, as the commission, you have every right to take to task the town manager and say, we don't like the way you're doing this. We don't think that you should fire the police chief. And you have every right. And in fact, we're going to terminate you. Okay. But to have the person on a daily basis have to worry about, well, let's see, I want to tell the fire chief something. Okay, well, guess what? If I tell that person, I know they're going to run and go to Commissioner John and complain and so on. And it just doesn't work. I mean, you need a clear chain of command, and that town manager should report to the commission. I mean, imagine if the town manager had to be voted out by a referendum by the town. Obviously, that doesn't work. So the town manager needs to report to all of you, and the people, other people in the town need to report to the town manager. I mean, that's the way it should be.
Okay, move on. You have something you want to add?
Yeah, Ron has summarized pretty well our discussions. We did talk a lot about the balance of power aspect of this, and it did come down to what Ron described that we would bring back to you. That ultimately you do have the ability to get involved in it. Whether or not a commission chooses to or not will leave to the future. Something like this is potentially always going to be a little messy. But I think our overriding concern was the proper administration of the city. And that is kind of why we ended up where we did.
Okay.
I have one more question. So who is responsible for like annual assessments, like doing an annual review and all that?
So I do that now. So just to add some clarity. So day-to-day operations does go through me. Now, if there is an issue with performance, one, I would think then if there's a performance and I wanted to do something, suspend, demote, terminate, it would require on those two positions currently would require commission action in public in front of everyone to discuss. There's some other additional provisions that are afforded to the police chief if it's something that involves termination, has the right to defend, clear name type stuff. But it's tricky, and this was I think the charter review, it was difficult. One, we got through the complications of the conversation. Two, how do you sell this to the community? Is this just something you have to let ride and let them recognize it or not? It's a difficult charter question, right? How do you set this out for a voter to understand what change they're making? But I will tell you from practice and talking to doing this for a long time, and even Chief Hartman will say, it could go bad either way. So we have to define, there's many communities where the town manager and the police chief is generally where you find your problems, right? So luckily we get along great, but that's just so you could feel comfortable having this conversation, that there's not something brewing. I don't want anyone listening or out there thinking there's something going on. There's not, we're doing great. But in other towns, when you see or hear this, what Ron explains happens a lot more than you think. And it happened here a lot from about 2009, 10 until basically, I would say Lynelda and I got here and we get along. So you had a long history of, at that time, and I'll put Lynelda's position, not her into question, so she doesn't feel uncomfortable, but you had a lot of clerk manager problems in Highland Beach for a decade. And that's why you probably see a lot of clerk focus in your charter that you don't see in a lot of other places. And that's because you had a lot of, the clerk had a position of power and strength with the commission for a prolonged period of time. That's why you see a lot of clerk language in here that I've never really seen in a charter. Police, it's a little more common to see in places that the police chief, I think it's because of the risk involved. You've given him authority to prosecute and take personal liberties at will. And I think that's why some communities like to have the police chief as a direct report to the commission, because it can get very tenuous. If you have a police chief that goes rogue, it's harder to deal with than a town manager that goes rogue, right? I'm just terminated. You just three of you raise your hand, I'm out the door. That's how it goes. Chief, it's a little bit more difficult to unwind. But again, even if it's a police chief, a clerk, a public works, and it goes problematic, commission, the first thing they do is they go after the town manager. Regardless if I had anything to do with it or not, I am when the community comes calling saying, what's going on here? Your first turn is to the town manager. What's going on here? You don't run to these other folks and say, why is this not working? You come to me or your town manager and say, why isn't this working? And you hold me accountable. So that's the trick in all of this.
Why is the police chief more difficult to unwind?
Usually they, they have a certain level, like when you see a termination of a police chief, he's given an opportunity to come before the commission to do name clearing, things of that. Others don't generally have that ability. I think we have it written into the charter, but there's other things in statute. And if you heard it, you just recently saw in the city of Miami when they went after, I don't know if it was it Chief Alvarez, is that his name?
Yeah.
Or whoever that was, he could easily have been terminated, but instead you see this process where it's unwinding. But if they went to their town manager and said, enough's enough,
That's it. Out.
3 hands out, boom, you're gone. And then the police chief is escorting the town manager to his car. So,
Gotcha.
and I just think it's more difficult to unwind because of the authority granted by statutory responsibility to a police chief. Fire chiefs, you don't see a lot of them appointed by commissions, to be honest with you. I've never really heard that. Police chiefs from time to time, clerks, I've never seen it. Lanella did do some research. There are a few towns that have clerks written into the charter. So it does exist. I don't want to say that it doesn't. It's not very common. And I think Glenn confirmed a lot of that with the Charter Review Board from his 30, 40 years experience, especially here in Palm Beach County. It's not very common. And that's kind of the difficulty. So again, the question was brought is we're doing fire. Do you want fire to be just like police? So if it is an unsaleable item and you're uncomfortable, you don't know how to really get through this, or it fails, it defaults to the police chief and the clerk still reporting at the end of the day for termination, suspension, discipline to the commission. But the fire chief then would be similar to department heads. Kind of a long-winded, I just apologize if I kind of want to hit a lot of topics there.
I think that if ultimately the town manager's head is on the line, if anybody else gets out of step, then he should have responsibility, that he should be able to deal with it if we're going to hold him responsible anyway. And ultimately, he answers to the commission.
Okay, I've been very quiet. And I think a lot of good points have been made here by all my fellow commissioners. And funny or not, I don't agree with Evelyn, and I do agree with Peggy. Okay. We have to look at this beyond the fact that we have Marshall. We're blessed with having Marshall, no question about it. I'd say it whether you're sitting here or not sitting here. As we all know, my background is corporate. I spent all my life in the business world. And if this was the business world and we were the board of directors, there'd be no question in my mind that everybody reports to Marshall. He's the president, we're the board. But we're not. This is not, I'm slowly learning that we are a municipality and things work differently in a municipality. The concern I have is the history that I have seen outside of Boca is turnover of managers in municipalities is rather great. Limited knowledge of here, had a lot of turnover before we found Marshall. We didn't find him previous, found him. Turnover in Delray, we all know about that fiasco. And Marshall's not going to be here for the next 30 years. Just not going to happen. Nor will we be. So we have to be thinking about what structure is best for this small town with a small population here running the town, town hall, with a relatively small, extremely well-run police department, and hopefully a very well-run fire department. And I'm sure it will be because Marshall's here. What's best for the operation of the town? And we also have to think about the three key people that we're talking about here. If those three people can be terminated by the town manager, don't think Marshall, by the town manager, versus the town manager having to come to us or to the commissioners, what's the best way to run this place? If it was a larger place, I'd probably think, okay, town manager. It's a small place. They have access to all of us, which is terrific. I don't see the need for changing it. For example, I just think about Chief all the time. He has access to us. We have access to him, first name basis. The relationship between he and Marshall is excellent. If the relationship wasn't good, I think we would know about it. But I don't know that we would know about it. Chief's not going to be here for the next 30 years. The next person in, don't know what that's going to be like. So I think requiring it to come to the commission, if the manager wants to terminate that person, I think is a good check and balance. And I think that might be why it's in the charter. Again, if it was corporate America, I wouldn't even consider it. Wouldn't be a second thought. So I don't see the need to change it. And I would say that about the town clerk as well. But now when it comes to the fire chief, I see that differently. Fire chief isn't here right now. That's a whole new hire. It's a whole new operation here. I don't see why the fire chief shouldn't report to the man that's going to hire him. It's Marshall. It's going to bring him to us, going to bring us a couple of candidates to meet with. We're going to kind of help screen the person, but it's a new hire. It's a fresh new department. Why shouldn't that report to the town manager? That person's not packing also. I'm afraid of Chief because he's packing. Okay. It's not the police force. The police force to me is different than the fire department. I just hold it in a different classification. Maybe I shouldn't, but just to me, the police chief is, I don't know, is different than the fire chief. Also, it's a wholly new structured organization. I don't see it having to come to here. I also know that because we're small, no town manager worth their salt is going to fire a fire chief without coming to the commission and getting a partner. If that person did terminate the fire chief without partnering with the commission, I think the commission will fire that manager because there's no relationship there. That's where I come out on it.
See, I disagree with you. I think that I put the fire department, fire chief and police chief in the same category.
I could be
If
swayed to
I
put them
would-
together.
Would have them also, I'm not opposed to having a public safety commission where both the police chief and the fire chief report to a different head who then reports to Marshall.
Well, I see that as layering that isn't necessary. If we end up with the safety program that we originally talked about, I see that going over under chief and chief reporting to Marshall, but still having the commission have the final say on termination. I don't see a whole nother level. I think that's not necessary.
No, but that's what, if you're saying that, then the fire department would report to chief,
Right, as would the police department.
as would, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm calling a public safety.
Okay, we're in
Department.
agreement.
Yeah.
We're in agreement.
That it's,
But to start with, whether the fire chief can be terminated by Marshall or by the commission, I mean, I could be convinced to go either way, but I'd be comfortable with it staying under Marshall.
I find it interesting. I understand the wanting to find out what other communities do. But I don't put a huge amount of emphasis on that
I don't either.
because we are not other communities. We are in fact unique. We are very small. We're approachable, hopefully. And I'm not really concerned about how other municipalities handle things.
Much of it,
It's-
if I can,
yeah.
much of it comes down to the players. Perfect example is Marshall, but another example is Chief.
Mhm.
If it was somebody else, might be a whole different discussion. A lot of it depends, but you can't just organize around the personalities. You have to organize around the positions and how you feel about how an organization needs to be structured.
Oh, I agree. You can't put
know.
into a charter based on current position
No,
holders. It's got to be something that will stand the test of time.
exactly. And, this has stood the test of time. Now, the only thing that didn't was the 350,000. Okay, but
But that's why I would add fire chief in there. So it would be police chief, town clerk, and fire chief.
I guess I
okay.
don't understand why town clerk would be. I don't understand the rationale.
and I'm
for
not
cutting the
sure-
town
I
clerk
don't
out.
either,
Yes.
but I don't know that I would start extracting it.
Right, and I don't know-
Well, I
understand
think
why
the
it's there.
argument of the dotted line and all that is
Yeah.
much more pertinent to the town clerk than perhaps the police chief. I mean, I guess I can understand why, having the police chief out, have the exception for the police chief, but for the town clerk, it just seems like that
agree.
should be a direct line to the town
town
manager.
manager.
I can follow the rationale for the police chief and the fire.
We have
But I-
somebody that might be able to explain it.
Just to put a little perspective on it, we sort of view the town clerk, I'll speak for myself rather than the group. I view the town clerk in a way as almost your historian. That is the person who hopefully will have a long tenure and have their fingers on everything that has happened historically in the town and why, and becomes actually the bridge of the current commission to a future commission. So having them at that level of importance, I think is appropriate and should be treated in that vein. But again, that's a personal observation, not necessarily that of the board.
I'm sorry Glenn isn't here because I'd like to know if there are any state requirements, because I know that there are state requirements to be able to hold the position of town clerk. That there are a whole bunch of boxes that have to be checked.
He'll be back momentarily. We'll ask
So
him.
I wonder if the state comes into play here at all.
We'll find out.
So,
Can I say something?
go ahead,
Ron,
Mr.
is that you?
Graham.
No, yes. I don't think, well, when Glenn comes back, we'll find out, but I don't think there's anything at the state level that requires us to have the town clerk report in this manner. But anyway, I think, Mr. Mayor, you took all kinds of things. It seems like you talked yourself in and out of your position. I mean, it's like you say, well, I don't want the positions to dictate what's going on in a sense, or the people to dictate what's going on. But, I really like Chief Hartman and the town clerk. And so I don't want to make the changes to them, but it's okay if we bring in a new fire chief, because that person is new and would report to Marshall. That's okay. And Marshall's a really good guy and we all like him, and that's great for right now, but you never know what could happen if we had somebody that wasn't good. And we're all on the commission, we're all good people right now. But maybe it wouldn't be if we had different people in there and so forth. And I think you just have to look at it as, put your business hat on again, like you had it on, like you usually have it on. And I know that you're saying, well, this, we're a small town, and all of a sudden, you're in a municipality now, and you're mayor, and suddenly you're a bureaucrat rather than what you were brought up in and running a business. And the reason you were successful in running a business is because you ran it like a business. And here you're trying to say, well, all of a sudden we have all these personalities and positions and so on. I think you just have to look at it as, forget who's here. You have a commission made up of 5 people. And then you have a town manager, this person, and then under that person, you have all these other people. And the way organizationally that you needed when you ran your business and you reported to the board was you needed the people underneath you who worked for you so that you could hire and fire them and discipline them and encourage them. And you didn't want all those people underneath you with dotted lines to you where they can run to the board. And I mean, you couldn't operate. And yes, this has operated for a long period of time, but it's hard to say what went on all those years. I mean, how did the town managers do? Were they pulling their hair out? Sorry, to that they couldn't run things correctly? I think you have to look at what makes the most sense going forward. I really don't understand the town clerk at all, but I don't understand any of the positions really not reporting to one person, and that person reports to the commission. You all can, like Marshall says, the three of you say by Marshall, it's by Marshall, and I don't know why you wouldn't want it set up any other way. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I think the basic difference, Ron, is size of organization. What you're describing is my background was obviously a much, much larger organization.
Right.
Here we have a very, very small operation. If God forbid we had to move on our town manager, it could be months and months and months before you got another town manager. And then you're rolling dice. It's a real crapshoot if you're going to get a good town manager. The odds are not in your favor. So you probably turn over the town manager a couple times before you got a good one. So you're putting your whole operation into turmoil. The other part of it is this commission is more like a board, not here every day. We're not involved all the time. That's the argument for having the people report to. You're smiling because that's the argument for having them report to, which they do, but giving him hire and fire responsibility. You've got 3 senior people here that if you have a town manager that isn't that good and they start firing a police chief and a town clerk, you all of a sudden have a town that cannot operate.
Right.
Yeah, but you're never gonna allow that person.
And you've got one person that has made that decision that crippled your town.
Well,
That's probably the reason for this.
Could I jump in here as
Yeah.
well? I mean, one of the
We'll come
things
back to
that you've mentioned, Mayor, is that we are assessing the quality and caliber of the 2 people we have. We have Marshall and the chief of police. I mean, they're excellent. They're top-notch senior executives. Now, I don't think we will be hiring a fire chief that's not on the same level. He will be a top-level, high-caliber executive.
We hope so.
I mean, if we don't, then you're right. We have a junior. In which case, this all goes away and whatnot. Because I don't think Marshall needs to have the town clerk working directly for you. A police, because the administrative responsibilities are clearly aligned and very clear. But you getting into the staffing and the responsibilities of police, or even of firefighters and EMS, that's a whole different skill set. I want to think of it, there's a different word for it. It's a whole different discipline, right? And so I'm assuming that we're going to hire an equivalency in the caliber of executive here. In which case, you don't want to take a senior guy who's coming in to be our fire chief, and we need to attract that person thinking that I'm not an assistant that's now working for the town manager versus the police chief. He's treated differently. So I think that will help us attract somebody, given this is a triad. We only got 3 executives
Sure it
here,
is.
right? And honestly, in reality, when there's an issue, they're going to come to the mayor, who is really our acting president. Okay, if we look at this through business world, you're going to be the active president, and then you're going to bring it to the attention of the board when something is awry. So with 3, a triad of senior executives right now, not 2 with a maybe fire chief. We need to attract a solid, skilled fire chief. I think we can do that. But we all know that the 3 of you are going to have to work together, hand in glove, and cooperate on the same score that you're doing now. And it is on that basis that I think that, hey, we don't need to have.
Look at the only
Separation.
difference, the only thing we're talking about is, can the town manager fire the person? That's the only thing we're talking about here. Nothing more than that.
I think we all,
Suspend,
Not
but
a
not
big
fire.
deal. He does their performance reviews, takes care of their compensation, okay, does everything. Just can't fire them.
I think we also need to keep in mind something we haven't talked about, which is the commission changes on a regular basis.
Of course it does.
So you don't know who's going to be up here, who's going to be judging the police chief or the town clerk or the fire chief. So all of this is a crapshoot.
It's a total crapshoot. The town manager is the person that is responsible for the future of these individuals.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay? Not
because
the commission.
the hope is that the town manager is here through multiple commissions and whatever the makeup may be.
Very good point. Very
And,
good
you know,
point.
you can't count on a good commission either.
So if there is a personality conflict between any of the 3 people we're talking about and whoever the town manager is, it's got to be really bad before that individual comes to the commission.
But again,
Really bad.
we're not thinking Marshall.
I'm saying whoever that
Yeah,
person is.
It's got to be a whoever.
Okay, it's got to be really, really bad because that town manager is the boss. There's no question about it. And we could talk dotted lines, straight lines, whatever we want. The commission's not involved on a day-to-day basis.
No.
The manager is. You just can't fire them. But if the manager comes to the commission and says, I got a problem with so-and-so, and we need to let them go because of this, this, and this, I don't know how many commissions are going to say, no, too bad, you got to keep them. They may recommend some things that should be done before you let them go. They're not going to force the manager to keep an employee that the manager doesn't want unless they got problems with the manager.
Right.
So I don't know that it's that big a deal.
Okay.
Peggy, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. First of all, Dr. Kai had his hand up. If you'd want to call on him,
Oh,
I'm
I'm sorry.
happy to let him speak and then I'll go.
Yes.
Thank you. I just saw him out of the corner of my eye there. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very interesting discussion, and I appreciate your view. But according to our organization structure, we cannot have 3 heads in the executive branch. We have to have 1. Because if we have 3 equal executives, we will have conflicts. And I agree with Mr. Mayor regarding the authority, the town manager should be the chief executive. supervising all departments. He actually assess performance of police chief every year, not the commission. But I agree with the mayor that these important position, if the town manager would like to terminate, the approval should come from the commission. So the commission can check to see whether the town manager had a personal conflict with those key persons or not. At the time, you will know, we will try, actually in this case, the authority, the final authority is with the commission, but the daily supervision falls under the town manager.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Peg.
Okay, there. Yes, sir, thank you. First of all, we don't have the most brilliant history in some respects, which I will bring forward now in case those who are viewing may not know. Prior to Clerk Gaskins, the previous two clerks were elevated to town manager and then fired. Previous to that, the clerk ran for office for commissioner and was elected and served, Doris Trinley, and served many years very successfully. So we have a rather checkerboard history in the clerk's department. The reason I did request, and I'm always interested in other municipalities, is you can select them in terms of population, 50 and under, 50 and over, 250 and over, but it shows certain municipalities who work well and have a system that works for their towns as opposed to some who don't work. There are people in several municipalities in the state who are out of office and in jail for wrongly performing their duties. So I just want to say that that's an asset in my opinion. The clerk is in charge of compiling our agenda, and the agenda is ours. It's our commission's agenda. And we have the right to say, please put that on, please put that on. And working with her and of course the town manager, which we do, I think fairly successfully. Sorry, too much coffee. But the point here is that I strongly feel a balance of power is needed in our small community. And we have a very bright, engaged constituency. Our residents, many of them listen, watch, weigh in. They call us, they call the commissioners, the mayor, the town manager. And if things go wrong, they're hopefully corrected over time. But to just dissolve the balance of power that we have and has worked to a degree, I find a problem with. So I'm still seeking how other municipalities do this in terms of these positions. I'm not sure what to do with the fire chief. I can see the point that he is sort of in the same boat as the police chief and yet not. It's all new for us. So I'm open to all suggestions, but I feel that we have a good balance of power and I hate to just dissolve that and put everything on one person. That's too much.
Chief Hartman, did you want to say anything about any of this?
No. You can if you wish. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Sure. Thank you. I think it's a very important topic that you're discussing here. So what I will say is a little bit maybe confusion of some of the way it was termed, that we report to the commission. I've never reported to the commission. I've always reported to the town manager. So in 2008, when I was hired, I was interviewed by all the commissioners at that point, and they made a decision in this room, in another room, to hire me. But day-to-day operations, annual evaluations, anything that we do operationally is through the town manager. You know, we work for the town, and you're part of the town, the commission. I answer to the town manager. I've always answered to the town manager. This happens to be my 6th town manager, but so I think I think you're talking
On
about
behalf
some
of the
important stuff.
profession, I apologize.
Yeah, so, but you're talking about some important stuff because of some of the dynamic and the history of what we've had over the past decade plus here. So this is kind of critical, and I appreciate that you're talking about not the positions that are here now. because that's some of the concern. You know, you charge us with the health and safety and life safety of this community. That's some important things and critical people that you're putting in these positions. And you want to maintain that. So for what we have now, yeah, we're great. But moving forward, I certainly have a vested interest in what we've built in this police department. Hopefully we'll have that same moving forward with the fire department. And this dynamic is important in every municipality. And then everybody will tell you that, because that's the person you work with. You don't get the text from me at 1 o'clock in the morning on the weekend or the phone calls. That goes to the town manager. He understands the operations of what we do, what we're dealing with, and the critical conversations that we have behind the scenes about budgeting and everything else, and then comes through you, through him.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
When you first considered coming here, the fact that you could not be terminated, you could not be fired by the town manager, it was only by the commission. Did that make a difference to you?
So I think that's an important point. That's, like I said, the sixth town manager. So as that position can rotate, that should be a concern for your public safety people, your key people in your department. Because let's be realistic, personalities and styles come into play here. We were in a small environment. We see each other every day. We're not in different buildings in different part of the cities. There's a lot of interaction going on here. And if you don't have that chemistry, people are hired and fired based on that.
Right.
There's a lot of people that have the qualifications that I have at this top level, but you have to work in that dynamic in your community and through your town manager. This is the important piece. This person will be successful if you have this right person, and you have that now. So the dynamic is good, but you're trying to put that in place for, God forbid, down the line. That's not going to be that we're going to be that fortunate. So those things are important. Yes, he should have the control of the day-to-day operations. And I, as the police chief, should have his support and recommendations to stay or be fired. But if it's not him, and there's personalities and styles and chemistries at some point, it's something where the commission could come into play that should have that support and vote.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But I think, Chief, it's also true. You're talking about Marshall as a personality. You went through 5 others, and there were some tough times for you there.
Sure.
And frankly, if it wasn't for what the mayor suggested, you came close to leaving. We could have lost you. Because the town manager fired you, but because you were just done with all this commotion that was going on. And the fact is, you have a great relationship. Nobody's questioning that. Operationally, I don't see any change going forward. Add in one more in this triad of the fire chief. Operationally, I would expect it to continue the same way, in the same manner. But thank goodness that you had at least the knowledge that this town manager before Marshall, before that town manager and before that one, they could not fire you. That puts it in a whole different perspective, just to go off of the mayor's comment.
Okay. From everything that I've heard, I would suggest that we leave it as it is and we add the fire marshal to it.
I agree. I would carve out the fire marshal as well, just like we do for police.
You,
Mayor?
just as a technical, you said fire chief. is what you
Chief.
meant.
I'm
Fire chief.
sorry.
I
Chief.
just want to make
Fire
sure
chief.
you, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we say fire marshal and Marshall Abbott, it could get all confusing. And Marshall could.
I can see you driving the big rig.
We have to buy Marshall,
Get you EMS qualified.
right, we have to buy him a fire hat and everything. I just want to add that in my first year, the commission did conduct reviews and of the clerk and the police chief. We did fill out performance evaluations and reviews.
You
Just
see,
saying,
I mean,
as a matter of fact.
I know Chief very well. We speak very frequently, but I'm not qualified to do a performance review on what he's done in the last 12 months. I do not know enough.
Right, I'm just offering that as data.
Yeah.
That would be a wonderful thing for the town manager to continue doing because he is there hour by hour.
Oh,
When I say
absolutely.
leave it as is, I mean, as it appears in the current charter.
So you,
Get rid of the red
Glenn and I
line.
could come up with something and we can
Get
write
rid of the
in.
red line.
No, Not
Just
the
leave,
red line.
don't touch it at all, just add in the
Right.
fire
Fire
chief.
Yeah,
chief.
but that's what I'm
Right.
saying. You're taking away the red line, leaving the way it was.
Yes.
Because right now it's red line.
Yeah, yeah, not taking their recommendation.
Right, not to add, and adding fire chief into police
So
chief
it
Right.
comes to us.
and ten.
Right.
Yes,
So
sir.
Just have some clarification. So you'd like the word fire chief added, it looks like in two places where it says town manager as general supervision with the exception of the hiring or discharge of the police chief, town clerk and fire chief,
Mhm.
and add fire chief there. Is that correct? And then down towards the bottom where it says the town commission retains the power to hire and discharge the chief of police and town clerk, add fire chief there. Correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Second question. Did you want that in this charter to go to the voters, or do you want it in an ordinance?
Well, it's already in the charters.
Well, this is in the charter, right? You could change the charter to add fire chief, or you could just have an ordinance dealing with the fire chief.
Make it an ordinance, so that's one less thing they have to read and vote on.
It's exactly what I was thinking, which isn't really my place, but I'm thinking
We're
we've got a lot
thinking
of
the same
items on there. So,
Okay,
so fire chief will just be an ordinance instead as opposed to a charter.
Correct.
Okay.
But
Okay.
does that look funny? Like 10 years down the road, are they going to be wondering why did we put in an ordinance and not
Well,
change?
Well,
the
it might
charter?
work, I think, in two fashions, or at least what I'm thinking is, let's get our feet under us with the fire department and see how that works and your
That's even
experience
better.
with the
Yeah.
fire chief. And then the next charter go around, you might say, okay, we got this fire thing down as a community.
Okay.
Throw it in
That was-
formally in the charter.
Sure.
This is going to be something we
Yeah,
want.
my head was saying the less they have to read and vote on, the better. So why add this if it can be handled as an ordinance? But then I like his idea.
Yeah, I like Marshall's rationale.
Let's not do
Yeah,
anything for the first couple of years.
Right.
Let's get this behind
Right.
us so we know what we're doing.
right.
So
And
you-
if the person asks, when we're actually hiring, we'll tell him that,
I will be your town manager. God forbid any
yeah, of course. you will.
health issues when you hire your fire
Yeah.
chief. And you guys are already told each of you will be hiring the fire chief. So, we could see and get our feet under.
Yeah,
us.
I mean, this will all be a team effort anyhow, like most of our big decisions.
So we'll just prepare an ordinance then.
Yeah.
That does that. Yeah, I was thinking of some of those thoughts as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Last one, folks. This is calling a special meeting. The suggestion was to modify the language so that a special meeting can be called by virtually by any single commissioner rather than three commissioners. So basically, any of the five of us would be able to call a special meeting other than just by me, the mayor, and the town manager, or three commissioners. The board thought better of that and didn't make any changes. So did anybody up here have that suggestion? Okay, do you want to discuss it?
Yes, sir. Me again, sorry. Sorry to give you more work. I brought that up because, again, in 2018, the mayor had died. And first of all, and second of all, in early March last year, I kept getting data and nuances that the pandemic was coming on. And I phoned Marshall on a Friday, and he called a special meeting for Monday to put in all of our guidances, but I could have easily just called a special meeting myself. That's all. I'm not saying I'm bigger, better, smarter. It's just that I kept hearing it's coming on from many sources in and out of state. And I just thought that we should all be able to, with due cause, to call a meeting. That's all. And also in the event that we don't have a mayor, that's why I ask and what process we have for the vice mayor to assume the role. Just all these weird little nuances that have occurred in the town in recent years.
well, I think it worked perfectly because you called Marshall and he called a special meeting. I see
Yes, ma'am.
no
Yes.
reason to change it.
That's fine.
Because you can always contact the town manager. So
And that's
there's,
fine too. I just thought it
there's no
merited
reason.
discussion.
I don't like the idea of letting a single commissioner call a special meeting. Because again, down the road, you could have special meetings called all the time for no good reason at all.
We have a comment.
I have a
over
question
here.
for the attorney. How would three commissioners call a special meeting with sunshine laws?
Yeah, how does that occur?
That was my next statement. It doesn't make sense. Right. It doesn't make sense.
But, and that's what it says now, though.
Is that even there? It says rather than 3 commissioners, but can 3 commissioners call a special meeting? Is that in our charter?
No, you couldn't unless you did
At
it through
a
the town
commission meeting,
manager.
you could, but outside of a meeting, you couldn't, because then you would be conducting a meeting illegally.
So,
Right,
so
correct.
even this suggestion is not correct.
It's illegal.
Correct.
3 commissioners cannot call them.
Because
Well,
even if
unless
we
it
all,
was at a meeting,
Right
right?
now, we
Like right
can.
now,
Yeah, right
because we're
now, the
meeting.
three
Right,
of us could call
Sure,
a
3 of
meeting,
us
but
asked for a special
So,
meeting to
I don't think-
discuss
yeah.
something
I
else.
don't
Yeah.
think we have
We
to
could
Zoom
during a
in-house.
regular
But
meeting.
if we were not in a meeting,
Right.
correct.
3
You could do it,
commissioners
for
cannot
example.
get together and call a meeting.
No, and furthermore, if they called Marshall and then he started calling around, he would be a conduit to the
Be daisy
sunshine
chain.
law,
Yeah,
which
of
also
course.
is unlawful. So the ordinance as it stands can't stand.
Whoops, wait a minute.
It's not an
Well,
ordinance,
Wait a
it's
minute.
within a
charter.
meeting.
We're all making it up. Let's hear from,
The way this is written, whoever did this obviously was trying to avoid the sunshine law, because it says from the charter, for the purpose of taking action, special meetings may be held to call the mayor or the town manager, or shall be called at the request of 3 of the commissioners. So I would think that would be 3 commissioners individually call you and say, hey, I want a meeting. And he says, I like my job, I'm going to call a meeting.
okay.
Okay,
In real lawyer language.
okay, yeah. So, but that's a different interpretation
That's different.
than 3 getting together.
Right.
It's 3
Yeah, so-
calling
But
the town manager.
how would it be that 3 commissioners would, by chance, all call and ask for a meeting?
Well, all of a sudden, there's a catastrophe in town.
Well,
All 5 of you are probably
miracles
calling at
happen.
that point, saying,
Yep.
we need a special meeting.
But if it's a catastrophe, I have to believe the manager would know it. So, I mean,
I would think so. It seems a little redundant and superfluous. Like
Okay.
what the mayor said before, looking to keep this ballot tight and not
Right.
expansive.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we've completed all of this. Anybody have anything else they need to bring up? No? Ron, we keeping you up?
Sense mute. Ron, you're on mute.
You're muted. We like it that way.
Yeah, sure you do. I wanted to make a comment in the beginning of the meeting, and but I wasn't able to. Is it okay? Is it appropriate I do it now?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. This is like as a public comment, so to speak. So for the record, so I'm Ron Riami. I live at 47 Boulevard in Dalton Place. I am vice chair of the Financial Advisory Board and a board member of the Charter Review Board. My comments refer mainly to the commission spending issue, which I know you're going to take up, not at this meeting, but the next one, and the derogatory comments and inaccurate statements recently posted by a Highland Beach community blogger who calls himself the Save Our Town blog. This blog purports to be a fair and balanced forum for Highland Beach residents to voice their opinions regarding Highland Beach issues. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. I tried on a couple of occasions without success to submit rebuttals, and one of them being to a recent diatribe that was posted on September 26th, slamming the integrity and competence of one of the board members on my board, the commissioners and city manager, Marshall, and town attorney Tersivia, and questioning our agenda. Because the blogger has refused to post my comments to his quote fair and balanced forum, I provide my rebuttal here in the interest of transparency and for broader community outreach. And this is what I wrote to him. And I'm doing this because you're all familiar with it. I know you read it, and at least some of the residents of Highland Beach do. First, I'd like to point out that no one gave the Charter Review Board any direction with respect to increasing the spending limit that the commission is allowed to approve above 350K. Nor was there any direction for any of the provisions of the charter under review. I am a member of the Charter Review Board and obviously have direct knowledge. I find it disturbing that you are accusatory with respect to Barry Donaldson or any other member of that board. It's also very disturbing that you continually criticize town attorney Tersivia and town manager Marshall for issues that have no merit. Your attacks appear to be of a personal nature, which is unprofessional and unacceptable. Second, the town of Highland Beach is the only municipality that I can find that has a spending limit restriction for their officials. With a restriction of 350K, it becomes very difficult to accomplish many critical.
Yeah, we just lost him. Give him a minute and then we'll got to move on. Got to move on. It's unfortunate, interesting. Yeah, if he picks back up again, we can recall him. Anybody have anything else they need to cover? Yes, go ahead.
Again, just as a reminder, 12/3 is our deadline for the March. Thank you, Linelda, for the March agenda. So whatever we choose, we got to do another special meeting to schedule to talk on the funding. And when we come up with our final language, our target then is 12/3. So that first meeting in December, we could go to a regular commission meeting and authorize or approve that ballot language to go for whatever it is that you choose.
Basically have a month.
Yeah. So just FYI, just so we're on a, I don't want to say we're on a tight schedule. That's plenty of time because it looks like we've whittled it down to a handful that we
Yep.
really like.
Doable. Yep.
We need a meeting or two before we hit the
Okay.
December.
I did get a call from one gentleman. He suggested that we don't hold off on any of the questions, whatever we decide on. He suggested we just put them all on one referendum, one set of questions, be done with it. Okay.
One
However you
gentleman in the
choose.
public, Mayor, just a gentleman randomly in the public sector.
It was from Stern.
Oh, of
the,
course.
The chair of
Yes, he's
the
lovely.
finance board.
He's very bright.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wondered who that might be.
Yep.
Thank
No,
you, sir.
he's very involved. He watches everything.
He's great. Yes.
Yeah,
that's-
it's terrific. He also had a suggestion on the financing, on the 350. So I'll hold that off until we get into that. Okay, next is approval of the minutes from October 19th. That can be found on page 74. Anybody have any corrections, adjustments, comments?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
The funniest thing I've seen since I got elected here is that I talked about my dog. If that could just, if that could please just be revised to state that my dog will be advocating for residents to vote at the upcoming election. Please.
Is that 3 barks?
Yes, sir. 3 barks will do it. That's for yes.
Okay. Anybody
it-
have anything?
Two more, sorry.
Go right
If
ahead.
we could please correct the spelling of trolley, TROLLEY is the correct spelling, and that is on the bottom of page 78. Trolley services. 1, 2, 3, 4th line from the bottom. And I had a question of content, and the mayor may remember this, but lastly, on the bottom of page 76, second paragraph from the bottom last line, I just don't recall if that was the outcome. Once the Triple R project is completed, the permitting authority will revert to the specified ordinance. I just didn't recall if that was stated as correct. I don't remember.
Yeah, once they're finished, then it'll go back to the standard
Okay.
procedures.
I know we had discussed that and I couldn't remember if that was accurate. Okay, thank you.
Well, yeah, because once it's done, then I have to.
Yes,
become
I
precedent.
understand. I just couldn't remember that
Yeah, it's fine.
specific point. Thank you. That's it from me. Thank you.
Okay. Announcements. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I need a motion to accept the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes for the October 19th, 2021 commission meeting as corrected.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now announcements. October 28th from 5 to 7 PM. That's this Thursday is the food truck event. Yay. Yep, 2 trucks
Two
this
food
time.
trucks here. Food won't be delayed as long, so.
Right.
Oh,
So yeah, bring friends,
Excellent.
bring neighbors. November 2nd, 7 to 7, special referendum election. For everybody that's watching, there will be 2 commissioners there at all times. We have our schedule. I want you to know John couldn't get up early in the morning, so.
So I bit the bullet and
So
took
you-
his place.
Wait a minute, you're not alone, along with me.
That's true, yes.
Okay.
Except I don't get up that early either usually.
Okay. November 3rd at 1 o'clock is Natural Resources Advisory Board. November 9th at 1:30 is the next Town Commission meeting. And the 10th at 9:30 is the Planning Board regular meeting. On to comments. John, you got anything left?
I do. Manager's Minute. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but John Rand's family was very happy. They were just very pleased. They were all excited about it. And as you know, he's 97 years old. And it's one of our few World War II veterans. And so that was, I think, a big success. There is some concern that maybe there's a little apathy in the town about this election, even though we've got some signs up and whatnot. Not sure how much more we can do, but I would ask all of you out there to spread the word. To, you know, it's important for the town to have enough people to show that there is community support for this. That this is not just going to be, 50, 60 people approving this, that there's a real force behind it that is supporting everything we're trying to do here, especially after all this work. I can tell you, having continued my own effort to find a new condo in Highland Beach, prices have gone up solid 20%. It's unbelievable in 1 year to find that kind of an increase. But on the lower end, maybe 10%. But the point here, and I guess the information for the town is that if you made an investment in Highland Beach, you have done well and you are continuing to do well as one of the more valuable communities in the state of Florida. And lastly, I would mention Father Horgan and the St. Lucie Church, because they are continuing their work in trying to raise funds for Afghan refugees. That they have a relationship with the organization that is trying to support those that are hurting at, I think it's Fort Lee, Virginia. And so I'm giving a shout out for St. Lucie Church and whatever support you might be able to give there. So thanks very much.
Ellen?
Nothing, thank you.
Peggy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Tomorrow is a County League of Cities meeting. I'll bring back anything relevant to this commission at our next full meeting. And I'm working on a few things which Mr. Labadie will provide forward to you all when they're all ready to roll.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Nothing from me.
Okay. Just a couple of quick things. The number of people that I've talked with in different condos are all telling me they're working on their budgets now for next year, obviously, and they're all looking at 8 to 10% increases, primarily driven by insurance. Insurance costs are up anywhere from 20 to 30%. Obviously, we all know why. I won't have to go through that with everyone. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what our water consultants are going to tell us. If we're not looking at that big hit again next year, I think that would be appreciated by the condominiums. So when do you think we'll get some information back?
It's going to take them several months.
Oh, so
We want to get, ideally, I'd like to get one more billing cycle, that December billing cycle, to really get a better data set to test against. Are the rates generating the revenue that we expected, and then the injection of $2 million?
Yeah. What do you think we should be telling our condos for water increase next year, water and sewer.
Well, you've already experienced it. December would be your bill. So we sent out the notice with your bill that told you the increase. I think we're like 12 or 13% on water. But again, it's all depends on your usage, where you're at and how you jump up into those other categories.
What should we tell them for rate increases?
10 to 15%.
Okay,
I've said
So
15%, just to cover.
okay.
So is it set? So the next increase is October?
So
Right.
October 1, so all the water you started using in October 1,
Yeah.
all through November, you'll get in your December bill. So that December bill, you're gonna see a higher number than you did your prior. So we're gonna get a little sticker shock from the crowd a little bit
Yeah,
that hadn't
but-
paid attention.
The problem is that's too late. We're setting budgets now.
Yeah, I would say 10 to
So,
15%.
Use 15 to be safe.
That'd be super safe. Sure.
You follow me on their budget cycle?
But don't we know what the,
We know how each band changes, but
Right.
you can't really, it's hard to estimate water usage.
Volume
So
per
if
band.
your volume
so the
goes
rates,
up,
the rates are, we already know.
but
the
if we go
increase
back
in
to your
rates. That's why I'm
spreadsheet-
confused.
Yeah.
We know the increase in rates. That's a done deal, right? It's just
here's
the
what I've
use-
learned telling people about their rates in this town. If I tell them 10% and it comes at 10.25%, they're not pleased with me. So 10 to 15%, I get a little bit of wiggle room before I'm really chewed out, because there's going to be a condo that jumps 20% because
Their usage went up.
their usage went up.
Right, not the rate. It's not, we know the rate increase. It's just that their usage changed. So, okay, so he's just saying.
To be
say
safe on your
15%.
overall annual budget,
Right,
10 to 15%.
right, because you don't know what, and it's because of your usage. You don't know.
Well, of
what-
course.
Right.
It's usage
So-
driven, but do you recall when we set the plan?
I
did
thought it
we-
was like 12% or something like
Mhm.
that, was the.
Yeah, I think
October
rates, yeah,
change.
they're around 12%.
15.
So 12%, and then on the safe side, say 15 in case their usage went up
Yeah, that's
more
fine.
than what it had in the past.
Okay,
And if we have a
Yeah.
droughty winter, maybe you're seeing maybe it pops up higher because you can't predict the weather in the city.
that's fine. I'll use the 15, and anybody asks me, I'll tell them to use 15. That's all I had, and my agenda doesn't call for anybody else to comment, but
Have we fired the?
I'm sorry, you're
town
not
manager?
this is special meeting, so you're not on the comment list.
Well, can I make my public comment late?
It's all yours.
Just the continuation. We need another special meeting. So Glenn pointed out to me, thank you, Glenn, that to approve ballot language for a charter referendum has to go through an ordinance process. So we have to have 2 reads. With that being said, we have the November 16th. We could do the first read of the language there, but that means we have to meet between now and then to go over the charter and tie down anything else we have, the funding limitation item and those other items, tighten those up as we want, so that at our normal meeting on the 16th of November, we could do first read, and then we could do a second read on November, what's the first meeting, November 9th? Because she's going to give us 5 days, so that gives us pretty close to that date. So, yeah.
Do we have room on the 9th to talk about the financials?
You could, but I'm guessing you're going to talk about it for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It depends how long you want to go. I don't mind doing it. I'll stay as late as you want me to. I'm just saying, I don't want you guys to get too fatigued if we have our general business that we've rescheduled to that date. And then we could say no more new items and we're just going to focus on, we have a couple ordinances and then we can hit it then. We could do it on the 9th. And then if we need to tighten up anything, hit it again on the 16th. And then
Or come in early on the 9th. Have lunch
That's a
brought
great
in.
idea. You want to do that?
Started at
Want to
10
come in
o'clock.
early?
yeah, we could do lunch and
Are we
let's just start it
available
early.
Let's
And
take a
go
look.
from say 10 until 1:30 is our next meeting. Then we could take a 30-minute, an hour break in there, have some food, relax, then jump into our normal meeting if we want. Of November, yeah. We'll just do a 10 a.m. start. Yeah. Does that work for everybody? 10 a.m. good?
I was doing the League of Cities Ethics, 8 to 12, but I can try to reschedule that and just do a separate online one.
That'd be good. Are you
We
okay?
can, there's another one, if you because I'm just like you. There's one on December 15th. There's an ethics one too from the Florida League of Cities. If you need to, if you're looking for a
Right.
rescheduled date, that I signed up for the one on the 15th with the League of Cities.
Got it. I
And that's
might
it's
be.
an online virtual, but
I
I
can
don't.
change that too. I was going to ride the Polar Express that week, but out of Alpena, Michigan, but I can change that.
Well,
Literally.
It's a good time though.
Yeah.
So we'll go from 10 to midnight. Is that what we're doing?
And if you see or want anything before then, send it to me directly and I'll share with the group, not to be discussed, but if there's something like, could you give me some more information on X or Y? I'll try to get that out ahead of time so you can digest it a bit and speed the process up. We won't communicate about it, but I'll send you background. So maybe that helps speed it up a touch.
So just from an administrative standpoint, those two meetings,
There'll be 2 meetings. You have a special meeting at 10 to say 12:30. And then you have a regular meeting at 1:30 on. And then if we like everything as it relates to the charter, then on the 16th, we could do a first read, November 16th, the following Tuesday, which is already a scheduled meeting of the commission. Charter review, just continuation of this special, another charter review to talk about the spending limit and then any of the little tweaks that I noted here that we'll talk about offline to bring back to the commission. November 9th, you mean? I could do that. Let's do that to speed up the process.
great.
And then if we like it, we can do a first read then of those items individually. Yeah,
That may make it go faster.
it'll speed it up. Yeah, yeah. Then the only open one would be the funding. We wouldn't do the first read until the following week.
And is the Charter Review Board welcome back?
Sure, of course. 10 a.m. on November 9th. We'll put a notice out. Linelda will communicate directly with group 2 as well.
Linelda, can we talk about this?
Of course you can.
You've got on election day, canvassing of all remaining ballots. Board present 5 o'clock. Is that all of the mail-in ballots?
That's, I got that, yes, I got that from the supervisor of election. This is mirroring her schedule. So if she gets some that comes in on the day of, she'll canvass at 5 and then on the 4th, I'm sure she's gonna canvass those that come in after, like she's receiving, the polls close at 7. She may still be receiving some during the time the polls are open, and she'll canvass those on the 4th.
Gotcha. Okay, so if we go up to 4 o'clock then on the 2nd, that's when you're tabulating everything that's been received in the mail up to that point.
Yes,
Will we get those results?
they show online that as on the day of election, she's gonna be posting things you have to look at television or even her website. So we will get those.
Okay,
So any loose ends will be tied up afterwards. So if it's a super close election by like 1 or 2 votes, we should be nervous because you got to tie down the loose. But if it's, as we hope everybody's on the same page, the night's results will be adequate
Well, now,
for
does
you
she-
to move forward and thinking and stuff, but then they'll certify it at a.
and then
I
it's.
have a question. So when do they start reporting on results? Was it at 7 PM on Tuesday that they start reporting?
I have to find out. She may start reporting sooner simply because they have the mail-in ballots that, she'll start running.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah, if we could
well,
clarify that.
actually, I'll find out
Well,
because they have to the polls have to close and they get the cartridge that will relay the information to her.
Yeah, because I thought they said they wouldn't start reporting on results, tabulating until 7 PM
Yes,
when everything was in.
yes.
And
Yes.
right?
Well,
Is that what
that's
we're all
true.
saying?
Aren't they
That's
going to
true.
run it and post it right there on the votes in the machine?
Yeah, once she
At
runs
St.
the
Lucy's?
cartridges and everything through her
They
machine,
should run it and post it like
Not until
within
after
15,
7
20
p.m.
after
minutes.
7, it'll
After
start.
7
After
p.m.
7.
After
Yes,
7
after the
p.m.
polls close.
Mhm. right? They won't do it before the
No, no,
polls
no,
close.
no,
Yeah.
Okay, I
That's right.
wasn't sure what you guys were saying.
no, because,
Okay.
no.
Clearly, okay.
But,
Just wanted to
but
clarify.
mail-in, we usually, I shouldn't say we usually, mail-in, I thought we get some inklings before 7.
She's
No.
not.
No, she's saying no.
No,
She's
We don't
not.
know anything until
nothing
7.
until 7,
Yeah.
right?
That's really fair. That's,
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to,
no.
right?
Don't we have a nursing home or something where we can collect 10,000 ballots? Put them in at, 3:00 in the morning?
But
That
you-
doesn't happen.
You gotta check them first. Okay, anything else?
I just want to, I got a note here that Eve Rosen could not attend the meeting because she was ill.
Oh,
So
Sorry to
that
hear
came in
that.
after the meeting started. So that's
Our
why.
best
she
to
didn't-
Eve.
okay, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn at 4:51. Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Okay. As long as it's not early in the morning.